haven't checked the weather yet, but I know it is the perfect day to chat about adult Jewish literature. I'm Cheryl Stahl. Thanks for joining me here at Nice Jewish Books. By the time this episode is published, it will be just over 2 years since Hamas invaded Israel and killed almost 1,200 people from 21 communities in southern Israel and the Nova Music Festival. About 250 people were taken hostage into Gaza. 2 years later, 48 hostages remain there, although only 20 of this number are thought to be alive. In the war that followed, a lot of attention has been paid to the suffering of the Palestinian people. Less attention has been paid to the hostages, and even less to the soldiers. Although the time period is different, today I am happy to welcome Yishay Ishi Ron, who focuses on an Israeli soldier's PTSD experience. Welcome, Ishy. I am really eager to hear and speak about your book, Dog. So please tell me about your book.
So thank you, Cheryl. I'm very happy to be here and join your podcast. Okay, so I'm an Israeli author, and I'm also suffering from PTSD from my service in a special unit in the army. Dog is actually a fiction book, and it tells the story of a Golani officer turning from Gaza in a different war. It was pillar of defense, and he falls apart due to PTSD, and he become a homeless drug addict living on the street of Tel Aviv, and everything changes or turns when he meets a stray dog that changes his life experience and adding a lot to the book's plot. It is important for me to say that although I'm talking about PTSD and about the war in Gaza, not this war, but another time, Dog is telling the story of what happened after the war is over. Okay, it's not a war novel. It's a novel which followed the protagonist when the war was ended and what happened to him, and actually what happened to a lot of us, because this stray dog, is also PTSD. And PTSD is not only belongs to veterans, although we tend to see it a lot, and during the last 2 years in Israel, it's very, very obvious. It's horrible. We had more than 60, almost 70 soldiers killed themselves during the war due to PTSD that was not treated.
Wow.
But I think PTSD meets us everywhere. Sexual PTSD from sexual assaults and car accidents and illness and dies in the family. So PTSD, it's a very global subject, and I hope when some people read my books, not only that they will enjoy reading a book that is, tense and keeps them that they cannot stop reading and enjoy it, but also that they will have an added value, that they will understand what happened in a case of PTSD.
I was actually a little nervous starting to read the book because I don't like war novels, but I found it to be very readable. And your main character, who goes by Geller, after Uri Geller, the Israeli illusionist, to be very human. It wasn't a pity party. It wasn't full of
It wasn't cliches, maybe.
It wasn't cliche. It wasn't just explosions of anger. It was just a very matter-of-fact telling about his daily life, about living in this abandoned building in a dump, about his need for drugs, about the the connection or lack of with two other people who are living in the dump with him, one of whom finds this dog and threatens to kill it. And it's sort of a triggering thing in a good way that he wants to rescue the dog. So can you talk about that?
Yes, when no one pick a name for a book, a dog, if the dog has no special meaning in the plot or in the book theme. Of course, the dog in my story is much more than I think is much more than a protagonist. Okay, because the book is told from two perspectives. One is in first appearance as Geller. Geller is thinking, speaking, etc., and the other one is from a third person perspective as dog. And dog is actually is symbolizing a lot. He symbolized, if you remember in the book, he symbolized the dog that Geller have seen and met in Gaza. And that dog wasn't Hamas, he wasn't Israeli, he wasn't Arab, he wasn't Jewish, he wasn't Muslim, he was a stray dog. And from all the people that were killed in Gaza, all his friends that were killed and all the innocent Gazians that were killed, that he killed, the only thing that he remembers, that he can handle, that his soul and heart can handle, is that dog that he thinks that his teammate have shot on purpose. So he puts all those energy, all those memories on this dog because if he will deal with the people, with the human lives, it would be too much for him and he will not be able to handle it. So dog is that poor dog in Gaza that was shot, and on the same time, it's the dog that comes to give him some kind of rescue or resilience in his handling the situation where he's already fallen apart and his soul is falling apart and he is looking for a rescue in some kind of a way, and dog is someone that gives him, you know, even a body hit when he lies near him. So dog has so many perspectives and things like dog is so much important. It's so important in the book, in my perspective.
Yeah, that's actually one of the quotes that I had pulled, that dog, capital D, dog, could die just like that dog. Then everything explodes inside my head. Dog bleeding to death, a hole in his head just like Yoram. Dog is an Arab, dog is a terrorist, dog is Hamas. Crutchy Tzvi's snorting laugh, the hole in Yoram's head, his weight against my shoulder, dog lying in a puddle of blood in Shajaya, and all the soldiers burned alive in their APCs. Just kids with their guitars and their Messi and Barca posters and pictures of pretty girls on their screensavers. So that's a lot of weight to put on one little mutt that he finds.
Yeah, because this is the process that Geller felt when he started to collapse, meaning what he experienced was very similar to what I felt. Okay, it is very unique maybe, but when I wrote Dog, I didn't know I'm PTSD. Okay, I wrote Dog many years ago, and during those days, I wasn't willing to admit that I am PTSD because in Israel we are men, and everyone are in the army, and basically men are much more. It's harder for men to expose their weakness. I think it's a fact all over the world. Also, men that experience other like sexual assaults are very rare to admit what they have passed. And the same is with PTSD. with veterans. For years, my wife told me, listen, you beat me up at night, you scream, you have nightmares, go check yourself. And I always said, no, don't worry. And I hide everything under drugs and under alcohol. And I was smoking a lot of weed from the moment I woke up till I went to sleep. And I drank a lot and I used some other drugs when I could. But of course, I wasn't, when I wrote Dog, I took it to another level because I wanted the to be a little more dramatic. So I put Geller with heroin and living on the street, but it's something that happens to veterans. And I think that when I'm talking about putting, like what you read, putting those experience in such a row, choosing such harsh words and a lot of emotions, it's because I went through it. Okay, at first I didn't admit I was addicted, and later, when it was too much for me and it all blew up in my face, I had to admit it. So I had to say, I'm a PTSD. I suffer. Take care of yourself. So yes, I think that describing what Geller passes is was possible for me, even though it was unconscious at the time, because I took a scalpel and made a surgeon to my heart and put the art to the reader. And when you're so authentic, it sounds authentic.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's the situation in the United States as well, that many of our veterans do not ask for services and suffer from PTSD. And uh, the number of them living homeless on the street is a horrific sign, about our ability to take care of them.
Yeah, it's the same on.
Okay, I want to go on to another character is Doris, who has been through some trauma herself. And she witnesses Geller and Dog uh, being hit by a car and ends up taking Dog uh, to a vet and taking care of him, and then trying to return him to Geller. And they're able to connect. And I was wondering if you think that people who have been hurt themselves are better able to help and connect with other hurting people.
I think so. I think that this is why when you visit, let's say, a rehab center, some of the instructors were addict themselves, because when you experience such dramatic or extreme emotions, uh, it's easier for you to approach and to understand other people in the same situation. So it was obvious for me when I wrote the book that I need Doris' character to be PTSD herself from another level or experience in her life. Okay, she had a loss, she had two major loss. Okay, and she felt, and she's living not on the street, but her life is not easy. She lives a very hard life. And I think that's why it is very easy for her to connect with Geller and not to judge him and to think, oh, he's just a drug addict living on the street. And to see, although she's surprised as well when she finds out that he was a decorated officer in a special unit, because this is what happened, we never really knows who's the person in front of us and who's the one knocking on the window asking for money. So, but for her, she was not afraid of those kind of approaching this kind of pain, because touching pain is not easy. When you touch even other people's pain, even if they just tell you their life stories, sometimes it's too much. So Doris' character was obvious for me that it had to be someone that knew pain herself and knows pain in order to connect with Geller.
In the United States, or at least here in the Los Angeles area, there's a huge debate about how to help the population of the homeless who are drug users. And most services are for people who have or who are willing to stop using drugs. So, and Doris accepted him as he was and invited him into her home and said, "Look, if you need to do drugs here, do it." So there's Doris in particular, but I was wondering in general how you feel about this. Should we offer services first and then deal with drug issues, or deal with drug issues first and then give people the services?
I think that this is very individual. I think that, of course, if someone is a drug addict, it's a disease, okay? He's ill. He's not a criminal in the sense of someone that is planning to get rich by robbing a bank. He is a poor person that tried to help his life trauma by using drugs. Usually, this is how people get to it. They try to block their trauma, their life experience, and they try alcohol and they try drugs, and then it's very rare that someone just come to a drug dealer and say, you know what, I want to try heroin, give me some. No, usually it's a process. So of course I think that we should see the people. And I'm very humanitarian in my perception about mental health and about drug users. I think that mental health and some other issues as well are being treated in communities sometimes with a lot of shame instead of understanding that if I have a PTSD, it's no different than losing an arm in the army, okay? I shouldn't be ashamed because my soul was hurt or because I was very sensitive and got damaged and injured in my soul, and another soldier was hurt in his stomach or in his arm or in his leg or in his head. So, and by the way, just I've heard a crazy statistic that says that in research made in Israel, they showed that PTSD survivors, which are recognized by the IDF as handicapped, okay, like me, I'm 50% handicapped, recognized by the Defense Ministry. So in a research they did, they find out that an average of the PTSD handicapped live 5 years less by average than all the rest of the handicapped soldiers handled by the defense ministry. Meaning, even when you take head injuries and very severe handicapped soldiers or veterans, when you dig into statistic, you see that PTSD survivors live 5 years less by average, which is crazy. It's unbelievable because you would think, okay, people are. So I think that the system should first take care of the people. If it's veterans, if it's sexual assault, if it's crime victims, I know, the resources are not enough, but we should pay attention on how we divide them and how we take care of the people and how we offer help to people that need them, and especially for people who served their country. So, and were injured mentally.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
In terms of judgment, judging people who are in this situation, it seems like that's a situation with Geller's family. He has a loving, supportive family, but they don't seem to be able to connect with him, and he isn't able to accept help from them. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yes, I think that when you PTSD is very it has of course levels of severeness like any other mental illness. But when you have a severe PTSD like Geller is suffering or like I'm suffer, the manifestation of the disease is very of the illness it is very wide. And you know it can be very dramatic from disassociations to drug users and abusing of other of drugs and of aggressive behaviors which which come upon a lot of triggers, like anything can trigger a PTSD. It can be balloons if your father was, died and you remember the shooting near his grave. I have a therapist that she's PTSD because her father died in the war, and this is what she remembers: the honor shooting above his grave. And she says for years she cannot see balloons because she is afraid if it will blow up, it will be a trigger.
Mm-hmm.
So anything can be a trigger. And Geller he has another dramatic incident in his family, which, the father that he followed his footsteps and admired so much because he was in Golani in the special unit. And he maybe in his mind, Geller thinks that he's the only person that could have taken him out of the situation and help him. He got a stroke, and I think that Geller himself is much lost. And when you are so lost, it's very hard for you to get help, even from your family or your brother or your mom that is waiting for you. And then when you're a drug addict, it becomes even worse because people stay away from you because you need money, etc.
From the family's point of view, is there anything that they could have done better?
I think that basically, when I wrote Dog in Israel, it became like a cult book. It became a bestseller, and it reached the Sapir Prize long list for the Sapir Prize, which is the most prestigious prize, literary prize in Israel. And people started to come to my house asking for signature for the books, and then they start talking with me about their trauma. It was a little bit like a shiva, people are coming every day and telling the stories, and at the end it was like a little too much for me. But I've learned, because I had also parents come to me, and parents that says, listen, our boy is not the same since he came back from the war, and we think he's a PTSD and we don't know how to help him. So I think that like a lot of mental illness, PTSD is very challenging for the family, not only for the person that suffers, because again, mental illness it was very taboo. Now is less of a taboo, but still, it's a lot of shame in it. And if the and you do not see the injury, so it's not like you can tell your son, "Oh, listen, you lost an arm. Let's help you get a new arm and prosthetic arm, and let's see how we can." Here you're talking about something that the person that is suffering usually is ashamed, so he's not very fast in admitting it. Sometimes it takes him years to admit that he has PTSD because of the shame. And because he don't, in his mind, he thinks that if he will admit he has a PTSD, he was weak. He was not a good soldier. For me, it was, I shot my friend in an operation. He didn't die. He was injured, but for me, it was one of the reasons for my PTSD. Because then you think, oh, maybe you were not good enough of a soldier if you shot him, or maybe you could have killed him, and then you see in your mind every day how his parents would have reacted, or you could have injured him very badly. And so it's very complicated, and I think that for the family, it's no less of a challenge to live with a PTSD veterans or suffer someone that suffers from it, and it's a really it's a journey for both, for the family and for the soldier.
So Geller ends up being accused of murdering one of the other people living in the dump. And while he is in jail, his commanding officer comes to visit him and doesn't yell at him, but he's very angry for saying, why didn't you reach out to us? We're your brothers. When this one had a problem, we all got together and helped. When the other one had a problem, we all got together and helped. Why didn't you reach out to us? We're here to help you.
It's another point that I wanted to amplify in the book because it's something very common. I think everything leads at the bottom line to the complicity of the issue of PTSD, of being invisible, of being dramatically injured, but in a way that people don't see it. So, in the past, even people thought that you are coward. That's why shame plays such a big issue in PTSD. Okay, you look fine, you are all intact, your body is fine, but you feel inside dismantled. You break down, injured, and you suffer from so many symptoms, and it's hard for you to admit it, and it's hard for you to seek help also. And sometimes it happens that it's harder even to seek help from your teammates or from people or from your friends or from people that fought with you because why they are fine and they are not PTSD. What would they think on me if they know that, I got this thing? Maybe they would think I'm just, inventing it to get some stuff from the army. There's so many you carry on your on your shoulders, so much weight, and I wanted to amplify it in the book because this is how it is in reality. In reality, people sometimes kill themselves because they're ashamed. They are not seeking help because, let's say, if those almost 70 soldiers during this current war that killed themselves would have went to ask for help from the Ministry of Defense, and they got therapy, and they got psychology treatment, and they got medicated. uh, there's a good chance that they would have survived and stabilized and wouldn't do it to themselves. Usually the people that kill themselves, the PTSD people, patient that kill themselves, are the one that either are very ashamed and not treating themselves and not cannot find the energy and the force to get out of this closet, okay? Out of the shame closet and get out and say, listen, I was injured exactly like any other soldier. I need help. And I think this is the part in the book which you mentioned is exactly this part. It's the part that Geller couldn't reach out for help. Not from his family, not from his brother, and not from his teammates. And he just wanted to get the symptom down. So he was, instead of taking psychiatrist medication, he took drugs. And that's what happened in reality.
And ironically, probably other of his teammates are going through a lot of the same things.
Yeah, possibly.
Maybe not to the degree that he was, not living on the street, but
Possibly. Yes, I know quite a few people from my unit that are PTSD. Yeah. So it's much more common that people think, and actually it's the most it's known to be the most common injury in the army, PTSD.
so we mentioned at the beginning that he goes by Geller after Uri Geller,
Yeah.
the guy who could presumably bend spoons with his mind. And he wears a spoon around his neck that's kind of sacred. He won't use it as a tool for doing drugs, and he kind of meditates with it. So can you talk about his fascination with Uri Geller and what he hopes to achieve with this spoon?
Yes, I think that when you are in such a low place in your life, sometimes you cannot see the way out. You know that it's almost impossible. You know the statistic that so little a portion of the addicts can get clean, and you know that you suffer from such a severe anxiety and panic attacks. So I think that when he sees this movie, this video of Uri Geller, it's like a rope for him, a rope to get out of his situation in some kind of a miracle way. He thinks that, Uri Geller was, by the way, he was a paratrooper in the army, and he was in the 70s, I think, the only mentalist in the world back then, or the most famous one. And and Geller, our protagonist, is seeing a very old movie video in one of his teammates' phone, and he downloads it, and then he has a fixation of some kind of obsessive thinking that is in such a deep shit that the only way to get out of it would be if he will be able to bend spoons like Uri Geller, because then he will be some kind of half god. And when you are half god, you can overcome your overcome your addiction, and you can overcome your illness. So I was very fascinated by this. So the way I write my novels in the past, and the novels I'm writing, and the new novel that we are working on now, that will be also published in New York in 26. The way I write my novels is that actually take they take over a little bit. They control me. Okay, so I was asked why I use suspense in the book. Okay, that always the reader want to know why, who is the murderer, or why, what will happen with Doris and Geller, or what happen if Doris comes to visit Geller, and will she be safe, etc. So. And I said that I'm not using a technique of, suspense, but I'm really suspend myself. I'm, I, 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 I'm asking the question, I'm intrigued by the question of what will happen with the character. And when I thought about Geller, I thought, what can happen with Geller? What can help? What can really help Geller? And for a second, I thought, maybe he would bend the spoon. Okay, maybe it will happen, and he will. And when I'm writing a novel, so I'm asking, like the character are asking me the questions, and I'm asking myself, okay, let's try to see where the character want to know what happens, so I'll try and I want to know it myself. So I think picking up Uri Geller was some kind of something that was intriguing for myself. And will Geller, the protagonist, really be able to overcome his PTSD by bending a spoon at the end? I won't tell the readers, but so it was something that I thought was very special way of giving Geller some hope. Although we all know that in reality you need to climb the mountain step by step, and it's very hard and not always very successful.
Mhm.
Yeah. It was very important for me to give Geller another character that would move the plot and that would symbolize a lot of things. And I think a dog was, it was very organically in my head because dogs are being, we perceive them as people's best friends. And, they use some dogs in the army as well. So it was, I think, something very natural for me. And later, dog became, I added more and more layers to his character and actually was splitted to the dog in Gaza and to the dog which Geller meets.
So you mentioned that you have other projects in the works. Is there anything that you would like to talk about?
Yeah, in Dog, I don't know if you paid attention, but in Dog we put one chapter from our next novel, which Sonkata Press, my publisher, actually already bought, and it was already translated by Yarden Grishpan. It's called The Girl Who Rode the White Lion, and it's a kind of a fantastic historical novel which deals with the Holocaust, which is another PTSD of mine, the second generation of an Holocaust survivor. My mom is an Holocaust survivor, and her dad had a number, and I was very obsessed with the Holocaust as a child, and read everything and saw everything. And so I really like to deal with trauma and with extreme situation. So our next book, I'm inviting our listeners, of course, to follow me on my social networks and my YouTube channel, and if they can register to my website, they will be the first to know also about my next book, which I believe it will be like a very, very strong one, because the feedbacks we got from it was, by the way, blurred Bougie Herzog, Yitzhak Herzog, the president of the State of Israel,
Wow,
it's the only book he ever gave an endorsement.
that's
He said,
amazing.
"Yeah, it is. It will appear on the front of the book, because he reads a lot and he's willing to take photos with authors and stuff." But he said he never gave an endorsement for a book, and I was the first book after he read it that it moved him so much, and it was such an amazing book. And the Holocaust is such an important, especially now with the anti-Semitism that it's like waving all over the world. It was so important for him, so he agreed to give me this endorsement. So yes, I think there's a lot to look forward, and I really enjoy people approaching me when they read my stuff, when they read my books. So, I invite people to visit my social and to read and to write me if they feel like it, and I'm doing my best to reply everyone. And I hope Doug would make the journey the same like he did in Israel, that he will meet a lot of people and that he will meet a lot of veterans, and maybe that he will help a lot of people to deal with such situation.
Yeah, I hope so too. And that's a great lead in to the question that I ask everyone, that if you would like to issue a call for Tikkun Olam, for repairing the world, what would it be?
I think that I would ask people to be more humane in or humanitarian in their perception, and to when they see people in the street, beggars on the street, homeless people, don't go to the other side of the road and try to avoid them. And it's not if you want to give them something or not, it's the way you see them. Okay? And if you stop and, chit chat for 2 minutes, sometimes it means more than giving them money. And I want people to know that the weak part of our population is usually weak for a reason, and their life has been hard, and they went through a lot of traumatic things that position them in the way in the place they are. So my tikkun olam is to ask people to see the transparent people, to see that there are people that are that needs our help, okay, need a hand, and not only pass through them, because it's so easy for us, and sometimes we see someone on the street and we get scared, or we just go on the other side. And at least for me, when I see it in my neighborhood, I call the authorities in the meaning of to help, I'm not calling the police.
Hmm.
I'm calling
Social services
the
or
social services, or I'm calling the municipality people to help and know that there is a person that there's a need, he needs a help and a hand, and try to give a hand and help people that usually we don't see. And this is, I hope, people that would also, I hope that they will feel from my words, or we hadn't have time to chat about the amazing translation of Yarden, which did an amazing job. The translation is so amazing in my eyes. When I read it, it gave me a perspective on my art in another language, and suddenly I could understand the literature in with distance, not as the author, but someone who reads it in another language. And Yarden is amazing, and she's the translator of my next novel in English also. It's not only words, taking Hebrew words and putting them into English. It's really to understand the feeling, to understand what the characters are feelings and what they pass through, and to what the author was thinking when he was writing in Hebrew. And I think it really, before I didn't pay so much attention to translators. I think she's one of the five best translators from Hebrew to English existing today in the world, and I feel so grateful to work with her, really.
Okay, wonderful. So
Yeah,
if someone would like to contact you, what is the best way?
I think they can look for my website, which is yishayishi.com. They can find it on the Sonkata Press website also, and or they can Google it, Yishay Ishi Ron dog. And then when they in my website, they can see all my socials. They can, approach me on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. I'm everywhere. Mostly today it's Instagram and TikTok. But they can email me. Feel free.
And I will include your website and the publisher website in the show notes.
Sure,
So,
thank you.
so Yishay Ishi Ron, thank you so much for speaking with me about your book, Dog.
Thank you, Cheryl. And I hope we can meet also for the next book.
And also, since it is the 2-year sad anniversary now, I would like to put in my own hopes for peace in Gaza, peace in Israel. If you are interested in any of the books we discussed today, you can find them at your favorite Board and Brick or online bookstore or at your local library. Thanks to Dianki for use of his Freilich, which definitely makes me happy. This podcast is a project of the Association of Jewish Libraries, and you can find more about it at www.jewishlibraries.org/nicejewishbooks. I would like to thank AJL and my podcast mentor, Heidi Rabinowitz. Keep listening for the promo for her latest episode.
Hi, this is Ruth Spiro. I'm the author of One Small Spark, a Tikkun Olam story, and I'll be joining you soon on the Book of Life podcast. I'd like to dedicate my episode to the illustrator of this beautiful book, Victoria Tentler-Krylov. Without her luminous illustrations, this book would not be as wonderful as it is. I so appreciate her dedication to her art that I think it's important to dedicate this to her.
Hi, my name is Richard Michelson. I will be joining Heidi Rabinowitz soon on the Book of Life podcast, one of my favorite podcasts, I should say my favorite. And I will be talking about my book, More Than Enough, inspired by Maimonides' Golden Ladder of Giving. And I would like to dedicate this episode to my wife, who teaches me every day the meaning of generosity, and to the Northampton Street people, Downtown Dan and Busker Steve, who, as little as they have, know it is more than enough, and they always have a little bit to pass on.
The Book of Life is the sister podcast of Nice Jewish Books. I'm your host, Heidi Rabinowitz, and I podcast about Jewish kidlit. Join me to hear my October 2025 conversation with Ruth Spiro and Richard Michelson at bookoflifepodcast.com.